The first time I saw it, I didn't know it was a dragon. On the barren, ash-gray surface of Valor Prime, among the shattered remnants of a mining colony, it was nothing more than a shadow moving against the red dust. Its cries were high-pitched, almost human in their despair, carried across the windless plains. I'd been sent to catalog the planetary anomalies for the Galactic Exploration Consortium, a bureaucratic mouthpiece for the interstellar elite, but I hadn't expected to stumble across living legend. I crouched behind a fractured steel beam, binoculars trained on the creature. Its scales shimmered like molten silver under the dim twin suns. It had wings, too small to fly, tucked tightly against its body, and eyes the color of burning amber. My first thought, unspoken even to myself, was it's a baby. And it's terrified. The colony here had been abandoned years ago after a series of industrial accidents, the consortium called them. The truth, whispered among the veteran explorers, was that miners had awakened something ancient in the caverns below. Something that had killed the foreman and nearly half the crew before disappearing. I had assumed the stories were exaggeration. Miners always told tall tales, but staring at this fragile, shimmering creature, I began to reconsider. I approached cautiously, speaking in the soft, calming tones I'd been trained to use with intelligent fauna. It flinched, hissing, tiny sparks flaring from its nostrils. I froze, letting it gauge my intentions. Minutes passed. Hours, maybe. It was impossible to measure time in the sunless tunnels where survival was measured in breaths, not seconds. Eventually, hunger or desperation drew it closer, and it sniffed my outstretched hand with a tentative curiosity. When its tiny head finally brushed against my palm, something ancient and primal in the universe seemed to hum. I had bonded with the last known Valorian dragon hatchling. I knew I couldn't leave it behind. The planet was unstable, and the Galactic Exploration Consortium would likely exterminate it if it discovered a living dragon. Legends said dragons could manipulate energy fields, bend elements, even warp the very fabric of space-time if they grew to adulthood. In the wrong hands, this creature could spark a war that spanned sectors. And yet, here it was, tiny and defenseless, looking at me with those molten eyes as though I were the only hope it had. I named it Ember, for the tiny sparks that danced from its nostrils and the way its scales glimmered like coals under pressure. Cradling it in my arms, I activated my shuttle stealth engines. Valor Prime's gravity was light, the winds harsh, and the ash clouds thick. But I had flown through worse. I left the red plains behind, the colony dissolving into memory, Ember trembling against my chest, uncertain but alive. The first flight. Space travel with a baby dragon is complicated. Ember had claws sharp enough to tear through reinforced polymer, and the occasional sparks threatened to ignite the shuttle's fuel lines. But it was clever, far beyond the intelligence of any creature cataloged in the consortium's archives. It learned to obey simple commands, perch, sit, stay, within hours. It even mimicked some of my vocal tones, producing a hauntingly melodic whistle that reminded me of the old folklore my grandmother had told me about dragons back on Earth. The real challenge came when we entered the first inhabited sector after leaving Valor Prime. Ships in the Zeta Quadrant always scanned for anomalies, unauthorized energy signatures, unregistered biological matter. Ember's energy pulses were visible on the scanners, a bright, living beacon. On several occasions, I had to manually override the NAV system and flee before the Galactic Patrol interceptors could lock onto us. Every day, Ember grew larger, and so did the risk of discovery. I learned quickly that dragons were far more than physical predators. Ember could sense hostility, fear, even deception, across vast distances. During one skirmish with a rogue band of space pirates near the Orinthia mining colonies, the pirates attacked, thinking me an easy target. Ember roared, not a simple growl, but a resonant, multidimensional sound that shredded the pirates' hulls and knocked their weapons offline. By the time I fired a single shot, the remaining pirates were fleeing, trembling in awe and terror. Word spread quickly. The galaxy had caught whispers of a monster traveling with a human. A monster's name. I wanted to remain invisible. I wanted to keep Ember safe. But the universe has a way of announcing secrets it shouldn't. Holo feeds lit up with blurry footage from pirate channels showing a glowing, winged creature ripping apart a freighter as if it were paper. Headlines called me a dragon handler, a monster tamer, a heretic human, and other, less printable titles. Some hailed me as a hero. Most called for my execution. The Galactic Council didn't care about my intentions. They cared about control. Dragons weren't supposed to exist, at least not in the current records. Legends were dangerous. They inspired hope and fear in equal measure. And in a galaxy governed by bureaucracy and weaponized power, hope was a threat, fear was leverage, and I had become both. Council enforcers eventually tracked me to the fringe system of Clarion. They didn't come to negotiate. A fleet of armed vessels encircled my shuttle, and a single message came through the comms. Surrender the dragon or be destroyed. Ember hissed, sparks flaring, wings bristling with energy I couldn't fully comprehend. I realized in that moment that I had raised something unstoppable. Something that would not bend to threats. I made my choice. The Battle of Clarion. I barely remember the first shots. Ember's fire wasn't fire, at least not in the traditional sense. It was raw, elemental energy, bending reality itself as it streaked across space. I guided the shuttle, dodging missiles, as Ember's roars tore through the Council ship's shields. One by one, they fell apart, not a single one was left intact. I was no warrior. I was a scared, overworked exobiologist who had stumbled into a myth. And yet, alongside Ember, I felt invincible. But victory came at a cost. The Council's forces were too numerous, too coordinated. I realized I could not win by force alone. I had to disappear. Using Ember's abilities, I folded space around the shuttle, bending light and gravity to our advantage. For a few heartbeats, we were invisible. Then, in the void between stars, I made a decision that would define the rest of my life. We left the known galaxy behind entirely. Systems, sectors, quadrants. All the maps drawn by explorers, scientists, and bureaucrats became meaningless. We entered the uncharted expanse beyond the veil. Life beyond the veil. The veil, as explorers whispered, was a region of space unbound by normal laws. Stars shimmered in colors unseen, and time itself seemed elastic. I discovered that Ember could interact with this reality in ways no technology could. The dragon's presence altered gravity, healed minor wounds, and even influenced my dreams, visions of places, civilizations, and histories that had long been erased. It was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. I realized something crucial. The galaxy's fear of us wasn't just fear of the dragon's power. It was fear of the unknown, of what I represented, a living bridge between legend and reality, chaos and creation. Wherever we went, Ember was not merely a creature. It was a challenge to every institution, every council, every entity that demanded control. Over time, I built a sanctuary on an uncharted moon, shielded by natural phenomena that even council scans could not penetrate. I documented everything: Ember's growth, its interactions with the alien flora, and the subtle manipulation of energy fields that seemed to occur whenever it slept. I came to understand that dragons were more than predators. They were caretakers, arbiters of energy and life, capable of shifting the balance of worlds. The monster becomes myth. Years passed. Ember matured, and its power grew beyond anything I had imagined. The galaxy's hunts became less frequent. The council labeled us lost, erased from records. Yet stories persisted. Smugglers whispered of a silver-scaled terror with eyes like molten gold, a human companion capable of bending light and gravity with a single gesture. Children dreamed of Ember, calling it the guardian of the veil. Merchants sold trinkets of the human who tamed a dragon, and poets wrote ballads in languages long forgotten. And still, we remained alone. The galaxy had called me a monster, but in this silence, I understood the truth. We were not monsters. We were survival, adaptation, and legend incarnate. Ember would grow, maybe one day interacting again with civilizations, shaping realities in ways I could never predict. But for now, we were together, a reminder that life, no matter how terrifying, no matter how misunderstood, deserves a chance. Sometimes I watch the stars and wonder what the galaxy would say if it knew the full truth. Would it fear Ember still? Would it celebrate the miracles we created? Or would it simply call me monster and nothing more? I have no answers. Only the knowledge that the dragon I rescued was no mere creature. It was a being whose existence challenged everything I had ever believed about life, power, and destiny. And in the quiet moments, when Ember curls its massive body around the shuttle, sparks flickering softly, I smile. The galaxy can call me monster. I know what I truly am, the human who dared to love a legend and live to tell the tale. One night, while charting a new star system in the Veil, I detected something unusual, an ancient signal, not technological, not biological, but alive in a way that resonated with Ember. Its scales pulsed with recognition. The dragon stirred, wings extending, eyes burning with curiosity and power. Whatever sent the signal was calling, not to me but to Ember. The hum of its energy vibrated through the shuttle, filling the cabin with warmth and light. I realized then that Ember was not just a survivor. It was a guardian, a being whose existence was intertwined with forces far older than any council, any galaxy, any human bureaucracy. Whatever danger or mystery lay beyond the signal, Ember would face it, and so would I. The truth of our journey had always been about survival, but now it was about destiny. For days, we followed the signal through uncharted nebulae and stellar storms that bent space like liquid glass. The Veil tested us at every turn, gravity wells that twisted our shuttle into impossible angles, radiation storms that glowed with colors unseen by human eyes, and echoes of civilizations long gone. Yet Ember thrived. Each obstacle seemed to strengthen the bond between us. When I touched its scaled snout, I felt the pulse of the universe itself. Finally, we arrived at the source, a massive, crystalline structure floating in the void. It shimmered with a light that defied physics, casting reflections across Ember's silver scales. The structure was alive, pulsating in rhythms that matched the dragon's heartbeat. As we approached, I saw what no human had seen before. Dragons, not just Ember, hovering in suspended animation, each embedded within the crystal lattice like stars frozen in time. Ember roared, a deep, resonant sound that shook the shuttle. The crystals responded, pulsing brighter, their energy flowing toward the dragon. In that moment, I understood. Ember was returning to its kin, awakening the ancient network of dragons that had long been hidden across the cosmos. It was a reunion millions of years in the making, one that could reshape the galaxy itself. I braced for what I thought would be a farewell. Ember nudged me gently, sparks flaring across its scales in a final message. I choose you. The words weren't spoken. They were felt, deep in my mind, a connection older and stronger than language. Ember had not abandoned me. It had made me part of this new chapter, a human companion among beings the galaxy would never truly understand. The Council would never forgive me. Pirates would never forget the name of the human who tamed a dragon. Legends would grow, myths would spread, and somewhere, across the billions of stars, whispers would call me monster. But standing there, in the light of ancient dragons and the living crystal, I didn't care. I had done what no human thought possible. I had protected life, nurtured a legend, and discovered a universe larger than fear and control. Ember's wings unfurled, catching the light of the crystalline dragons. It roared again, and the sound echoed across the veil, carrying a message to every corner of the galaxy. We exist. We are here, and we are unstoppable. Together, we rose, leaving behind the small, bureaucratic fears of the known galaxy, soaring into a destiny written in scales and fire. I glanced down at Ember as we left the crystalline world behind. The galaxy might call me monster, the Council might hunt me forever, and countless species might fear the shadow of a dragon and its human companion. But for the first time in my life, I didn't feel fear. I felt purpose. I felt home. And so, amidst the endless stars, I whispered to Ember, "Let them call us what they will. We know the truth. We are alive. We are legends. And together, nothing can touch us." The dragon nuzzled me one last time, and with a powerful beat of its wings, we vanished into the unknown, leaving myths, bureaucracy, and fear behind. The galaxy would remember the story, but only we would live.